there's always that one fighter that has that special place in your heart that kind of brought you to it, that made you understand the the majesty of it, what it meant to be king of the world, which was heavyweight champion of the world, and how much mystique that carried with it, how much honor and reverence that carried with it, how much people in the streets were afraid of you, but also absolutely in love with you at the same time. It's like, the old Godfather question, would you rather be feared or loved? Well, the heavyweight champion is one of the very, very few people in the world who get to be both at the same time. And that's what I realized as a child. And that's what Mike Tyson made me understand about the potential of holding that crown, heavyweight champion of the world. So it's going to be difficult for me if you ask what champion most had the greatest value for me as a kid. That's the one, because that's the one who brought me to it.
Well, okay, this is perfect. I want to jump off some of those points and unpack what I feel are some uncomfortable truths about Mike Tyson. Truths that people used to grasp and embrace, but as he's rehabilitated his image, deservedly so, I don't think it's insincere. I don't think he's politicking necessarily. I think a lot of him simmering down in older age happens to a lot of people, including Mike. But when you talked about how the heavyweight champion of the world was at one point the most esteemed position basically in sports, it was bigger than being what Patrick Mahomes is now.
Mm.
The guy, it was on a steep decline in this country, that mantle, the heavyweight crown, right? But the guy who sent it to its grave and put the nail in the coffin was Mike Tyson in March of 1997 when he bit Holyfield's ear. And I feel like for at least half of the time since then, in those 27 years, he's been more similar to Jake Paul than people want to admit to themselves. I watched Legendary Nights from HBO. I know you watched all those like I did. And Larry Merchant, he has the opener talking about there's no reason why, in logical boxing terms, a fight between two guys past their prime, talk about Lennox and Mike for the heavyweight crown, should have mattered so much to so many people. But because the public has always had so much invested in Tyson, it did when it shouldn't. And here we are again. And this isn't so much a knock on Mike. This is a knock on us, on society. Part of me wonders how much have standards slipped to where 22 years ago, people were scoffing at Mike Tyson fighting a heavyweight legend, and now they're ready to sink their teeth and they're all into him fighting Jake Paul. I don't know. How do you unpack some of what I'm throwing at your way?
The thing that is missing from your analysis, which is correct but not complete, is that boxing is a reflection of the society at the time in which it takes place.
Mm-hmm.
The reason this fight is so massive is not simply because of the Mike Tyson we remember or the disruptor, as he calls himself, that we now know and many hate and many love, but makes a spectacle of himself successfully every time out. It's because this is where the culture is. This is where society is.
Yeah.
This is where two generations are clashing. It's, if we're honest, two races are clashing. Two mindsets are clashing. You're not incorrect when you say that Mike Tyson over the years has made a spectacle of himself, has leaned into the absurd, but let's not forget why. Because at the end of his boxing career, after hundreds of millions of dollars and probably $1 billion earned by those around him, all collective, he was broke. He was absolutely paralyzed with depression. He had tragedy striking his life multiple times. He was betrayed by those he trusted. He had a prison stint. Like, the Mike Tyson that we see today has come through so much darkness. I believe beyond depression, he had severe mental issues that he had to deal with just to cope with life. Forget about being an athlete. So as Mike Tyson went through the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, I think a lot of people at different times took that ride with him. If you were depressed when Mike Tyson was depressed, you were understanding. If you were feeling rage when Mike Tyson was feeling rage, you were understanding. Or if you were in the drug culture in the 80s and the party culture, and everything was getting a little bit away from you, even though you should have been handling your business, somehow you ended up broke when you had pockets full of money at one time. You understand Mike Tyson. If your family had betrayed you and your manager and the people who were supposed to be looking after your cash, they stole from you. You understand parts of Mike Tyson. If you were a criminal in the streets who came up and you shouldn't have, and somehow you made it to the big time, and then you fell all the way down, find yourself behind bars, you feel Mike Tyson's pain. There's a lot of moments in his life that people at different stages of their life can relate to. And what makes a star? Being able to relate to somebody. You have some moment with them that you share that you feel like both of you were the same, and this guy was just representing you in the world. But boy, that's me up there. That's what Mike Tyson brings to this moment on Friday. And that's why it's so important for people to see him get that one last win. Don't forget, it was embarrassing how Mike Tyson's career, his sanctioned bouts ended. It was embarrassing how Mike Tyson fizzled out. Nobody wanted to see that. It was a joke, man. It was a joke. And those of us who remember it are still hurt by it. And so what this gives Mike Tyson an opportunity to do, and all the people who I just named along the way that related to his story. If your girlfriend was a piece of shit, if you married the wrong woman and humiliated you in public, boy, did you understand Mike Tyson for a minute. If he can get this one win,
yeah.
For those who don't know, yes, we're talking about Robin Givens.
Yes.
If he can get this one win against this 27-year-old white boy who's just talking mad shit, knocking black people out left and right, making a mockery of the culture, if Mike Tyson can be the one to stretch him out for 10 fucking seconds properly on the canvas, everybody from every one of those walks of life and every bit of that related moment that I just mentioned gets a victory, gets a W, gets to end the story with a triumphant W, and gets to do it against the nemesis of all the things that you think had something to do with what was going wrong in your life at some time. I understand. Listen, the race thing is always sensitive, man, but it's always present. This is America, bro.
Well, I do want to chime in with, I think, mostly from what I've kind of cataloged talking to people, most white guys, brown, black, Republican, Democrat, they all seem to, for the most part, want Mike Tyson to knock Jake Paul out. But I will acknowledge that some of those white guys are on a win-win situation. If Tyson knocks him out, awesome, fuck Jake Paul. But if Jake Paul wins, hey, the white guy wins. And, that works for them too. But
the white guys who want Mike Tyson knock him out, those are MMA fighters. Those are boxers. Those are people who feel like Jake Paul is grandstanding on something that they love, right?
Yes.
And again, the race thing is a little tongue-in-cheek, so people don't go crazy.
No, I know, yeah.
It's about what people represent, right? It's about the young fucking white guy who's talking mad shit, who seems that he can't lose. This guy is, everything he's doing is winning. and so why shouldn't he be obnoxious? Why shouldn't he be brash? Why shouldn't he call out Mike Tyson? Why shouldn't he think he can be king of the world and do anything to anybody at any time? And then at the same time, they feel like, yeah, but this one was retired. That one wasn't a real boxer. That was an MMA guy. This guy is 58 years old, but yet he's still taking $40 million home. We're still all tuning into it. And if he's able to beat Mike Tyson, it is going to hurt the hearts of everybody who loves Mike, regardless of what you think about Jake Paul. So he's accepting the role of villain. He's calling himself a problem child. He's calling himself the disruptor. He's taking a page out of like the greatest heels in the WWE or WWF as it used to be, and allowing for people to heap upon him everything that they hate about the entitled white kid. Right? Everything that they hate about the obnoxious guy who is also constantly winning and putting this show together. Like, yes, you need Mike Tyson for it to be this big, but you also need a heel like Jake Paul to make it this fun. And that's just the reality of it. So what Jake Paul represents, and by the way, I think of him as a friend. I've worked with him before. You've seen me host his fights. He's not actually a bad guy, but boy, does he play the villain role well. He's played it all the way to the hilt, and that's what he represents to a lot of people. So this is the clash of those two cultures, those two mindsets. This is a moment where either people are going to get the vindication and that ultimate win that they wanted to see Mike Tyson in his career with. And this is a sanctioned bout, so that's going to be a W. If you go to
Although
BoxRec,
I have read, Mike will have to pass some tests today. Today on
I'm
the
here
15th.
for him to pass it. He just
Right.
walked out, so the fight's still on. He must have
Okay.
passed them. You know?
Breaking from Radio Rahim. Fight is still on as a post-sanctioned bout. Thank you.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is if you go to BoxRec, you'll see
Yes.
2 red L's at the end of Mike Tyson's career. And those are fighters who you don't know from Adam, other than the fact that those were the guys who beat Mike Tyson. To put a W, a big green W on top of those 2 L's, I think means everything to this man. And it'll mean a lot to people who aren't even talking about the fight, but are really hoping to see Mike Tyson knock Jake Paul the fuck out.
Okay, well, you set me up perfectly for the things I want to unpack, right? And okay, so give me a moment here because I'll first unpack the dream scenario. The one I totally have been thinking about all the stuff you just said about all this heading into the fight. So first I'll lay out the good news and then the potential bad news, right? And so everything you're saying I've grasped from the public. They want the old school wants real to beat the fake. And it's up to Mike Tyson in this fight to prove he could get knocked out in 1 round by Jake Paul. He is an all-time great heavyweight. He is the youngest heavyweight champion of all time. And for the foreseeable future is going to remain holding that record intact, being heavyweight champ at 20 or 21 when he knocked out Berbick. But there is that redemption you're talking about. He either has to make good on it, and he is fully redeemed from the Holyfield ear bite, from, having to quit against McBride and not going out like the guy who once said, I could masturbate in Madison Square Garden and they'll still sell this place out. Because if he goes out there and gets knocked out by Jake Paul in a round or two, or if he gets winded early and there's this sad outcome, he's closer to being the guy who's selling you masturbate in Madison Square Garden than being the Iron Mike people want to remember and love, right? So I'll liken it a little bit to when I asked you heading into the Tony Harrison-Charlo rematch. I said, you basically told me, Harrison's character's on the line here. You can't talk all the shit you did and not back it up. And to a kind of lesser degree, that's how I feel about Tyson. You can't desecrate on the heavyweight title by biting Holyfield's ear in what was at time the biggest fight ever in terms of pay-per-view gross. And then, put the final nail in the coffin of the heavyweight title. You can't at 58 put this kid over. You likened it to WWF. If you let this kid knock you out, you're putting him over. And who knows, these shenanigans could reach new heights. He could wind up fucking fighting Canelo over here. So, but before I say all that, so the good scenario, the one that everyone's hoping for is, remember Rocky Balboa, aka Rocky 6?
Ooh.
Okay, remember Stallone is like 60. He's Mike's age in that movie. Like, he should not be boxing, right? But right. He has this, Stallone delivers one of his beautiful Rocky monologues, and he tells his son, he tells Paulie in the meat market, he says, there's still something in the basement. And Paulie's going, you don't feel like you've peaked yet? And he's like, there's still things in here. I'm still upset about what happened with Adrian, what happened with Tommy Gunn, what happened with Apollo. Anyway, so he has all this stuff in the basement that he still has to let go of. And that's Tyson. And the dream scenario is he wins this fight because this is either going to capstone his revival, his pulling himself out of addiction and everything he's went through, and being that victor that people want to see. People want to see this happen for him. Either he's going to make that happen, and like Rocky says at the end to his son after he finishes fighting Antonio Tarver, he says, the beast is gone. Like he's exercised his demons by getting in that ring and performing well. Go ahead.
Can I jump in? Listen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because all of the things that you said are fascinating, but if there's one thing that I want the audience to take away, it's this bar. If Mike Tyson loses this fight, he's putting Jake Paul over. That is a bar, because he is making Jake Paul, in this era, he's passing the torch as the greatest prize fighter that we've seen since Mike Tyson. because that boxing is one thing, the pugilist science is one thing, but then there's something else that also has a rich and storied long tradition in combat sport, which I consider to be different than boxing. It's prize fighting. It's making a spectacle, creating in a giant purse that each fighter has the opportunity to grab on one night's worth of work. This is not something that we see because of the legacy of Jake Paul or the acumen of even all the fights and knockouts that he's gotten. This is him creating one spectacle at a time. Nobody looks at his record and is like, oh, well, this is how he fought this guy, and this is how he fought that guy, so we can see this from him, and this is what he was like in the Olympics. No, none of that is in part of the conversation because he creates one spectacle at a time, and he creates one big prize at a time, and then fights for it. And thus far, with the exception of Tommy Fury, has won it. And even that Tommy Fury loss wasn't so convincing or so definitive that it took away from his ability to create another prize. Mike Tyson, since his boxing career, has been a prize fighter. To your point, has created spectacles, and at the time, at many stages, was not good for boxing. He was a, a spectacle unto himself as he was trying to grow up and mature and fight through his demons. Those demons that he has now had to tap into to get in the ring on Friday. Like, he's not the weed smoking, daughter on his lap, teary eyed, jovial Mike Tyson you see on Hot Box that, over the past years. In the past couple of days, and I can attest to this, he's gotten dark and quiet and crabby and mean. Now, granted, he's also an old man, so you can tap into your old man, grumpy.
Did you run into him at 7:30 p.m.? Like, no, I'm just kidding.
I don't think that's a show. I don't think that's a put on. I think now he has found that dark part of his spirit that he feels like is the only part of himself that still has the desire to hurt someone. I think it's kind of dangerous because he is mentally fragile because he has mental health issues. So if you start to tap into your dark spirits and start to really lean into what it is that is unhealthy about you and that makes you violent and that makes, if you think that's the only part of you that can win a fight, then that's where you're going. I'm not so sure it's going to be easy to put the genie back in the bottle. I don't know that once the final bell rings, no matter what happens, all of a sudden Mike can just go back to being balanced because it takes a lot to keep him balanced on a regular day in regular life without all this going on, right? Jake Paul will be either humiliated by a 58-year-old man and all the wrongs that he has done to the combat sports.
Which he'll be fine if that happens, by the way. He will turn that into gold if he gets humiliated. Yeah.
If he is victorious and puts Mike Tyson away, and I don't mean just like 8 rounds, okay, Jake did better than Mike and Jake wins it. That's fine. But it's not fine, but it's not awful. But if somehow he knocks Mike out and we're seeing that man, 58 years old, on the canvas trying to regain consciousness, I think Jake Paul will be the greatest heel ever.
The heat that he will draw from that. Or as I want to get conspiratorial minded, the energy harvesting he will summon from the masses. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I don't know where the truth lies. Is the ultimate truth, because I'm all about truth, is the ultimate truth I want to see that is Mike Tyson, does he more deserve, because as great as Mike is, there are greater fighters than him that don't sniff his popularity. And so does he validate people making him the legend that he is by putting an end to this charade? Or does he have to, or is he just as much, if not more, a false idol that the public, because I said this before, if the public was obsessed with heart and grit and character and all the good things, Evander Holyfield, the guy who actually won those fights, would be the beloved figure. But Evander's not the speaker. He's not the deep thinker. Evander's a smart guy, but not the deep thinker that Tyson is. So I get it. It's not just so simple and straightforward. But now I got to lay out.
He doesn't have all that relatable toxic
ups and
history and
downs
ups
and
and downs,
yeah.
and yes, and they just have the knockout reel that even
Well,
these
that's what I
kids
mean. Can he
who never go ahead.
can he validate that? Like, can he validate that? No, we love him because of all that stuff. Or no, are you obsessed with celebrity? And does your false idol let you down, or does your legend deliver?
Right.
Or does your false idol who fucked up the heavyweight title in the biggest fight ever put over Jake Paul? All right, people, we're gonna have to face some. And so I just want reality to play out. What is the reality? Does Mike Tyson, in a way, deserve to get embarrassed for going through and taking the money when at 58 to put a, or does he deserve his redemption and give Jake Paul what a lot of people think he deserves, an ass whooping and a humiliating beatdown? We shall see.
What does America deserve, Sean? We can't take a fucking another L this week. We need some real moment to celebrate. And listen, wherever you are on the political spectrum, I don't believe that Jake Paul having his
I
hand
didn't vote, by the way,
raised.
audience. So
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't believe if Jake Paul having his hand raised with a 58-year-old man asleep on the canvas is something that America needs right now. We need to see the old school triumph just one more time. We
the
need to
old
see
school triumph. I hear
the
you. I hear you.
fucking like
I
shit
hear you.
talking. Because even if you love what happened in the election and all that, but all that shit talking, all that obnoxious behavior, all of that shit that is clearly winning, we need some kind of counterbalance to that. Even if you love that shit, we need the old school Mike Tyson, who, yes, now is considered to be one of the most beloved figures in the world and has at times been one of the most embarrassing and at some points even hated figures in the world. Like the stuff that he has said over the course of time and the things that he's done have been abhorrent, and he'll admit that he struggles with that. That's why I know he's a good person at heart who has made some terrible mistakes and had some dark moments. But I know because he struggles with it to this day, even though he's already now like gotten past that in most people's minds. And the kids who are loving Jake Paul didn't have a firsthand experience with that, so they don't really hold Mike Tyson accountable for all
He's
that stuff
also probably an awful influence on kids, and yeah,
at the time,
Jake
right?
Paul, yeah, yeah.
But to to move past all that and to still be in the hearts of the fans and the people and still be as popular as he is. He had the cartoon that I think did a lot to humanize him and help bring him back. This moment, man, we need it. We need it. I think America needs it. I think I think just what I mean. We need some kind of balance. Everything can't be what Jake Paul represents, who also I don't think is a bad person actually, but what he's representing, fuck that shit.
So and that's my thing. I'll let truth reign, and I will definitely. Tyson winning is the babyface outcome. That's the feel good 1980s movie cap. Sweet, sweet victory. Like yeah, definitely. But
That's it.
we shall we'll see, man. Maybe not. Maybe America has to get a big whiff of shit up close and have to deal. No, this is what you consented for: an old man getting beaten up by a YouTuber.
This is
And
what you
this is
wanted.
what you really, we'll see. But so now
Yeah.
let me go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, you're right. We're going to be asking ourselves that question, I think, for a few years to come. This is what you wanted. How do you like it?
Right. Well, but maybe it's Tyson's ultimate final capstone to his redemptive arc, and that'd be beautiful. But so now let me quickly lay out, because we got a couple minutes left, the sad scenario, which is Tyson. Tyson comes out with a head of steam, and for about a round or two, maybe even two and a half, three, people are like, "We're gonna get it." They're salivating. Like Mike's, peekaboo is on point. He's smoking. And Jake is scared. Jake is not stepping into the jab. He's clinching every time he gets in. But then those shots aren't landing and the steam starts to come out of his sails, right? And that's when people have to be confronted with the ugly truth about Mike Tyson at many points in his career, which is, he folds, he acquiesces. And when he's a little bit of a front runner, and there's an awful scenario where his most famous phrase gets turned against him, which is everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. Because Mike Tyson I don't know how hard these sparring partners are going on him. Roy Jones didn't hit him. I don't. When's the last time Tyson got hit in the face? And the pads don't hit back. You know.
Listen, Sean, you're talking too
Yeah.
much reality. This is
Yes.
you're bringing me down. That's a
I'm
bummer.
sorry.
Okay. Actually, Jake Paul is here, so I gotta go talk to him.
All right, go talk to
So,
Jake Paul.
your prediction for Friday night?
Oh God. I began the week like with the sad scenario. Like Jake's gonna survive the first couple rounds. He might even stop him late when Mike gasses. And then as the week has gone on, I felt that godly like no something like this is gonna be the beautiful moment. Can I pull a radio, Rahim, and say I don't know? No prediction from me on this one.
Mike,
Have a prediction? Yeah.
Mike Tyson in 5, and
Okay.
America wins. We all need that big moment where we can collectively cheer. Don't worry, Jake will be fine. He'll carry on. He'll
Turn it into
together.
gold.
He'll put